How we doing? Everybody doing okay? It is Vision Sunday, which is always fun as we kind of turn the corner from summertime and then we go into the fall. And I know it looks different for all of us. Some of you are like, dude, Mike, there's no difference between what I did last week or 3 weeks ago. And some of you are like, man, I've been in Aruba all summer. Good for you. We love you. But, you know, students, you're all back to kind of a new rhythm of the school year. And whether you're in a new school or you're in a new class, all those kind of things, there's always just that shift from summer into fall. And so we always usually start with kind of a Vision Sunday. And I know a lot of times when we say the word vision, so often it's like, oh, here we get to hear like this corporate sort of thing. And this is really as much about your personal vision for your life as it is a vision for us as a community of faith. And so that's what we're gonna be talking about today. And it's kind of funny though, because when you talk about vision, it's interesting. I read something recently that really stood out to me, and it said this: just because you have sight doesn't mean you can see. And I was like, oh, that's so true. And even Jesus would echo those words when he would say, man, there's a group of people, yeah, they have eyes, they can take in information, but it's not connecting. It's not resonating in their soul and their heart. They're missing some things. And I would say not just with vision, like having to do with a sight, but there's someone called Helen Keller. If you don't know who she is, you can look it up, but she had to go through life blind and going through that. She said it this way: the most pathetic person in the world is someone who has sight but no vision. And I thought, like, wow, isn't that true? Like, how many of us here are fighting perhaps with things like depression, anxiety, or a sense of just like, I have no direction for my life? And I go, man, what if you had a fresh vision? What if you could see who God sees in you and what he wants to do for you? If you could have a fresh vision of him and who he is in this season of your life. And so vision, I think, is so critical at this time for you personally, but I think where we're at as a human race. I think it's so important. What vision do you have for your life? And I would say this, what are you allowing shaping that? What's determining the vision that you might have? And because I was reading, like, here's this passage, I'm just gonna share it with you. Jesus said it this way in Matthew 13. Listen to this. This is kind of a haunting verse if you think about it. Like, I read this and I go, this might be one of the absolute most tragic verses to read in the Bible. And you're like, I don't get it. What do you mean tragic? You mean like there was all those other tragedies that involved all kinds of like death and destruction, things like that. But listen to this, okay? Jesus says in Matthew 13, this is why I speak to them in parables. Jesus is saying a parable is taking a divine inspired truth and displaying it, sharing it, revealing it in a narrative, a story, an object lesson, something like that. So he's like, hey, I speak to them in parables, though seeing, they do not see. Though hearing, they do not hear or even understand. In them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah: you will be ever hearing, but never understanding. You'll be ever seeing, but not perceiving. And I was like, whoa, I don't want to be someone that misses out on what Jesus wants to reveal to us. Like I think, this is why I think it's one of the most tragic verses, that there was a generation that lived at the time of Jesus. And the generations before him prayed that someday God would show up in the flesh, the Messiah would come as the rescuer, the deliverer. And you could imagine that generation after generation after generation was praying, like maybe he will come in our lifetime. Maybe he will be coming in our lifetime. And they prayed, and you know it, at some point there was going to be the generation that Jesus would show up. And he did. But when he showed up, there was such a lens of expectations. There was a lens in which people were seeing that they could actually be looking at the Messiah standing right in front of them and miss him altogether. Like, to me, how tragic is that? That Jesus could show up, God in the flesh, he's with them, he's doing miracles, he's delivering, he's healing, he's speaking such profound truth words that liberates people and brings dignity to them and restores life, and they're hanging literally on every word, captivated by him. And yet there was a whole group of people totally missed it, which tells me there could be some of us in the audience today that see it and those who don't. There's a part of me going, God, I don't want to be like that. Isn't it true? We kind of look at that first century generation of Jesus followers and go, I totally would have got it. Like, losers. Like, we do. Don't we judge that? We kind of go like, Like, I wouldn't have missed it. I totally would have recognized him. I'm like, you know what? I know myself enough to know that I probably could have fit in the same crowd. That we can create such a lens of expectation that when Jesus shows up, we're like, well, it doesn't meet my expectations, and we miss him. Or we're blinded, or there's something like that in our life that causes us to miss him. And so this idea of vision is super important for all of us. Let me ask you, what are you seeing? What's shaping your vision? And I would argue even too, like, what's hindering, what's inhibiting your vision from seeing? I started thinking about that a little bit more too, because I had to see this in a practical way. I looked this up, and this idea of contrast between I have sight but I can't see, it's this idea that I can see but not recognize. Like if Jesus was to show up in my life, would I recognize him? Would I be like, oh, that's him? And I know that sounds kind of simple. Like, of course I would. Of course I mean, if Jesus walked through the doors right now, would we see him? What if I told you he was sitting in the 5th row in the middle right now, right over here? Jesus is sitting right here. Somebody's like, how many of you, like, would you recognize him? Would you see him? Like I get to hang out sometimes with a bunch of athletes that get paid a lot of money. And when they walk in a room, people recognize them. I think we recognize more people who are famous on earth than the ultimate fame of heaven. That if he walks into a room, if he walks into my life, would I see him? Would I recognize him? Would I be like, whoa? And so this is the prayer I'm going to start with. I'm going to ask you to do something, and it might sound corny, but just humor me. Would you, here's what I would do. Take both your hands, put one hand over your eye and the other hand over your ear. I know it's so weird. It's okay. I know somebody walked in right now. What cult is this right now? I know. Don't send me an email. Go, dude, that was corny. I know it is corny. It's goofy. I get it. But you know what? I think it could be profound. And here's what I'm going to pray. So Holy Spirit, come. Holy Spirit, you're the spirit of revelation. You reveal the essence, the nature, the goodness of a God. You remove blinders. And so I pray, Holy Spirit, would you come and teach us in a way, but more than just teach us, not just give us information. We know that when you teach, you reveal and you open eyes. So I pray, Holy Spirit, would you open our eyes to see? Would you touch our hearing, that we would have ears to hear? And ultimately, would you touch our hearts, that we would receive what you have for us? So Holy Spirit, would you lead us now in Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for that. Although, I'll be honest with you, that's my prayer every morning. That's the prayer. And I may not like go around do that kind of stuff, but I do. I pray that. Lord, I pray today I wouldn't miss an encounter with you. Lord, today I pray I wouldn't miss how you want to reveal yourself to me. Lord, I pray today I wouldn't miss what you're revealing about me or about something inside of me. I want to hear your voice. I want to recognize what you're doing. I want to be such a part of that. But it requires the ability to see. Now, I do this at my house a lot. How many of you do this? I go to the kitchen and I open the fridge door. And how many of you do what I do? I'm looking at, where's the ketchup? Anybody do this? And then the voices from the living room echo right in front of you. I do it all the time, honest truth. I'm like, and I'm looking. Like I'm seeing, but I'm not seeing. I'm looking, but I don't see what's standing right in front of me. And this idea of like, would I recognize his voice? Would I recognize what he's doing? So when I was in college, this is really embarrassing, but it's maybe for edifying to you. It's super humiliating to me. But when I was in college, I was dating this girl, and it was kind of like, okay, it's whatever. It's like one of those whatever relationships, right? Like if there was mulligans, I ate them all up. And so we were dating, and we ended up in this long distance thing, and she's living up, and it was super dysfunctional. And she's up in north by Alaska, and I'm overseas. And I'm playing basketball on a team. We're traveling all through Europe. And so there's this distance. And back in those days, you don't do long distance relationships today. Today, you're like FaceTime. Today, you can like Snapchat. Today, you can use all kinds of apps to communicate with people all across the planet internationally, instantly. It wasn't like that when I was in college. When I was in college back in those days, especially internationally, you had to find a payphone. Remember those things? And then you'd have to dial. If you were dialing internationally, there was like 100 numbers that you had to put into the thing. You're like, how do I even get out of it? It's like all the satellites had to align over that one phone booth. Then you could get connected with somebody on the other side of the world. And so here's how the conversation went. I thought, well, I'll call her. And we hadn't talked for a while because I was gone because I didn't have access to it. And I thought, I'll call and check in. And that kind of thing. So here's how the conversation went. Phone rings, she answers. As soon as she answers, she says, hello. I go, hey, what's up? And she's like, oh, hey, so great to hear you. So good to hear your voice. And I'm like, yeah, what are you up to? Da, 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 da. Well, yeah, it's been great over here. We played this team, we did this, and all this kind of stuff. Like 3 or 4 minutes just having that conversation. And then all of a sudden she goes, so hey, what time are you picking me up for the party tonight? It took me a few seconds, and I was like, ah. And I'm like listening, and I'm like, oh, she's thinking somebody else. And so, honestly, in that moment, I could have been like, oh, how dare you, whatever. I just went with it. To be honest, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, relationship's done anyway, so we're gonna go out, boom. So we're gonna just like, so I played along like I was the other dude. I literally did. I was like, oh yeah, what time works good for you? Let me know, I'll swing by. I'm so looking forward to the party time. Me too, we're gonna have such a great time. I kept the thing going the whole time. And then at one point I said, do you know who this is? Yeah, and she said the guy's name. I was like, nope, done, over, whatever. And I honestly, I could tell you, like, oh, I'm such a stud, dude. Inside, I'm like, I'm so rejected. I totally was like, oh my gosh, and just to be honest with you, why do I bring that up? One, it's just send me those emails of encouragement and sympathy. Best news ever. That relationship ended within weeks back at school. Met my amazing wife who's here today. And so God is good. God is so good. He knows. He's so good. There might have been some dating advice in there. I don't know. You can siphon out whatever you want out of that. But here's my point is this. Like if you are on the other line and Jesus was trying to communicate to you, and again, just metaphorically, would you hear his voice? More importantly, would you recognize his voice? Because I think that's the hard thing today for so many of us is that there's a lot of things, voices, that are trying to tell you your vision for your life. Don't miss this. So many things out there or people have a vision for your life, and there's only one that matters. And the hard part is many of us think we're living the vision that Jesus has for us, but we're living the vision of the world, which is success and relationships and all these things that can be good, but not ultimately what he might have for us that's best for us. And you wake up one day and you'll be like, my goodness, I've been living the wrong vision for my life. Or maybe for some of us, we're drifting and we don't even have a vision. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I don't know what I'm supposed to be. I don't know what I'm supposed to give my time to. I don't even know who I am. And so I'm lost because I have no vision. And so maybe you're here today and you're somewhere in between that spectrum. But this is what I want to encourage you with. Today's not just hearing the vision for the church, because sometimes when we say that, and I don't want to judge because I've even done this, but oftentimes when we have Vision Sunday, we're like, here's the big vision for the church. And we're sitting there as individuals going, how does that apply to me? Like, what's the vision? And this is something, I shared this with some of our staff. I would fail miserably as a pastor if I didn't give you the vision of Jesus that you could take to any church and live out. The vision for your life should be not just for Grace Chapel, but wherever God has you, you move somewhere and you're like, I'm still, because I know. And then the hope is that the vision for your life and the vision for our individual lives becomes the corporate expression of the vision that Jesus has for all of us. When you look at the vision that Jesus has for his church, it is a corporate thing, and we'll talk about that, but it's also a very, very personal thing. And so if you left today and you just got one and you missed both, then I didn't do my job. My hope is that you would have 20/20, that you would have the ability to have vision for your life, and you would see the vision that Jesus has for your part in the big picture for his church. Does that make sense? So wherever you're at, and you're like, Mike, I don't even know if I believe yet. Hang on. Because if you come in as a skeptic, cynic, Jesus loved skeptics and cynics. He loved that. He's like, come, let me show you the vision I have for you. And so that's my prayer for you. If you're here, wherever you're at, just know he has a vision for your life. And I hope you discover that, and I hope today's a part of that. And so I want to read another passage. And this is something, too, where I was kind of like last night, and Lauren is so amazing because Lauren was putting slides together. and usually we get all the slides ahead of time, and they show up, and then there's me last minute with some slides. And last night I was in bed praying for this morning, and I asked the question. I was asking the Holy Spirit, I said, Holy Spirit, why do we miss the vision? What keeps us from seeing the vision that Jesus has for each of us and for his church? Like what actually keeps us asleep because you can't see when you're sleeping, or keeps us somehow where it's not clear, it's foggy, it's murky, whatever it is, like what actually keeps us from seeing the vision? And so I'm laying in bed last night praying this, and all of a sudden words started coming to me. And they all start with D. I know, because that's the way I roll, but that's how I hear things. I'm going to put them up here on the screen. Here's the thing. If you want to take a picture of these, here's what I think are like 6, and there's probably more. I don't have time to get to, but 6 what I think are reasons we miss the vision that Jesus has for each of us. Number 1 is this. I think a big reason we miss out on living out his vision is distraction. We're so distracted with good things that actually pull us away from the best thing, which is the vision he has for us. And we could have a vision for our life. Like, listen, my vision is to build this company. And I'm not saying those things are wrong, but if that's your ultimate vision, then you can be distracted by that when Jesus is saying, I got something else for you. And so even though what I'm trying to say is good things can be distractions. Maybe for some of us, like my goal right now is like, I want to be the best athlete. I want to be the best student in this. And I'm going to like just be popular. I'll be successful, straight A's. That's the vision for my life. And you know, and we can be so devoted to that. And I'm not saying those things are bad. What I'm saying though is if we get so distracted, it's usually not the bad things that distract us. It's just other good things. And good things can distract us from his ultimate that he has for us. You know why? Because it's easy to justify the good things. Of course, bad things can be a distraction. Sure, I can get caught up in all kinds of things that aren't good for me and are actually destructive behaviors. But usually there's a check and I'm kind of like catch myself. It's usually the illusion of other good things that distract me because I can justify them. So I think distraction is a huge one. Distortion is another one. And by distortion, I mean distortion of my identity. Because listen, if you believe that God has a vision for your life, then you're gonna go, wow, he wants to use me. But if you have a distorted way of seeing yourself, then you will see yourself as the exception to the vision that he has for you. You will say, oh yeah, he'll use them and he'll do that, and Jesus has a vision for everybody but me. And I hear this, you know why? Because here's my number one feedback I hear from people as a pastor. Yeah, but. God has a purpose for your life. I know, but yeah, but I've done some things, or yeah, but or yeah, but I don't have enough education, or I don't have enough training, or yeah, but. And we see ourselves through a distorted lens instead of seeing ourselves the way God sees us and says, I want to show you that I have something for you that I want to reveal to you, and I want to reveal it in you, and I want to reveal it through you. And we sit here and we go, but me? And he's like, yes, you. You have to see that. But the enemy loves to distort that. The enemy wants you sitting in a posture that you are God's rejection versus you are a recipient of his invitation. And vision is always an invitation. How many of you have ever been invited to something? How many of you ever wished you were invited and didn't get invited? And you're like, I'm so rejected, right? And that's what we do with this. We have a distorted view of ourselves. Number 3 is this, depravity, which is my own sinfulness. We all have areas of sin that we are struggling with, but what I mean by this depravity is there's a difference between I recognize something, I'm walking daily in God's power and strength and his spirit to help me overcome that, versus I tolerate, normalize, and embrace it. And so like if there's areas of sin in my life that I'm like, yeah, I minimize it, or I make excuses, or I justify it, all those sort of things, then it becomes an invitation to me fully seeing who God is. I'll just be really honest with you. When this area here, for me, when I struggled with like looking at things on the internet years ago, just like, you know, not to say temptation is not there. And it used to be always about don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that because it's wrong. And I was feeling this deep sense of guilt and shame, and that there's that. But when I started walking closer in who the Holy Spirit is and relationship with him, I began to go, I don't want to partner with unrighteousness and sin. Not because it's just bad, it is. And not just because it's destructive, it is. Because he's so good, I don't want to miss out on what he wants to reveal in my life with him. Does that make sense? Relationship trumps it, not religion. when relationship becomes the foremost of everything, you're like, oh, he has so much he wants to share with me. And here's the other thing too. I would say for some of us, it's defamation. Now, what does defamation mean? Defamation means slander, right? And I think so often we don't want to receive what God reveals to us, or we're not positioned to receive because we have the wrong view of him. And listen, the enemy is rampant right now with this propaganda campaign that God is not a good God. He is not a good father, and you can't trust him. And that is so that is just everywhere. And if we buy into that, we're buying into the defamation of character of who God is. And let me tell you, if you buy into the defamation of character of who God is, you'll never press into the nature of who God is. I meant to mention this at the very beginning of the message. I did this first service. So next Sunday is probably, I didn't even want to say this, but I want you saying it so you're praying and so that you do show up. But I don't want to say it's to overhype next Sunday, but I feel like next Sunday might be one or the most important messages to share. And it has to do with this, but I'm going to leave it there. So how's that for a little teaser, okay? So just show up next week. Cancel all your plans. But it really is important because it presses in on this idea, defamation of character. You have the wrong view of God. And if you have the wrong view of God, you have the wrong vision of God. And if you have the wrong vision of who God is, you'll never pursue him for who he is. I think the other one, the Lord, as I was praying in bed last night, I heard the word diluted and dilution, and this idea of my passion's been diluted. I'm living with a spiritual apathy. I don't have that hunger. I don't have that passion. I don't have that fire. God, I just pray, would you stir that inside of us? Would you awaken inside of us that passion for you, that desire for you? I want to see more of you. This is where this got me. How many of you have ever been coffee with a friend and you're sitting there, or a family member or a coworker, and you're sitting across the table and you're having this and you want to share things with them? You want to share your day, or you want to share really cool things, and then they grab their phone and you're talking with them, and then they're doing this and this. It's one thing to see this. It's when you start seeing people do this, you're like, really? I know it's not an emoji. You're scrolling through right now. But how many of you have ever seen this, right? You're having this conversation, and then somebody on the other side, they pick up their phone. And what do you do in those? Come on, don't we all do it? Okay, let's just confess that. What do you do when you're wanting to share and you see someone else that's not paying attention anymore? What do? You stop sharing. Well, you should. You stop sharing. And I wonder sometimes with us if our passion for God, God, I just want to hang on every word. I want to hear everything you have. I want to see everything you want to reveal to me. I wonder at times if there's a spiritual apathy where he wants to reveal those things and we're like, hold it, God. Hold a second. Just one more second, Jesus. And I wonder in that apathy of he's not the most one I'm captivated by. I wonder if he goes, it's okay. I'll just wait. Take your time. Just wait. I'm here, but just wait. And I think other times he grabs the phone in our hand and just breaks it. So there's that too, okay? There's other times he's like, give me the phone. I have so much for you. I need your captivated attention. But I wonder sometimes if it's diluted. And the last word here that I was last night praying about, I heard the word decapitation in my head. And I'm like, I don't know about you, but y'all know what that means, right? And I'm like, Lord, what keeps us from seeing your vision? And I heard the word decapitation. So I had to pray into that last night. I'm like, Holy Spirit, what does that mean, decapitation? And then what I heard was this. Too many of us have a faith, but Jesus just isn't the head of it. That's what I heard. I heard there's some of us, we don't see what he wants us to see. We don't hear what he wants us to hear. It's because we put our head in place. So it's about what I want and what I see. So I'm preoccupied with me. My faith is all about me versus you're the head, Jesus. This is for you. This is for what you want to do. This is for what you want to reveal. This is what I'm just sitting here you are the head of the body, which means you are the head of me. You get to determine what my faith looks like. You get to drive that home. You get to reveal that. And I wonder, I had this picture of literally a bunch of decapitated people calling Jesus followers who what they've done is they have removed the proper head from the body. So I know it's super graphic. But I think that's sometimes this list here is reasons why we don't see, we don't hear what he has for us. So here's what I want to do. I'll give you some good news, okay? Y'all like, whoa. If you want to write these things down, write this down. How do we then live in partnership with the vision that Jesus has for us? I want you to look at your neighbor right now and go, Jesus has a vision for your life. Good. And it's really cool. Let's try it one more time. Just look at it and say, hey, Jesus has a vision for your life. So how do I discover that? How do I see that? Like, what's the alternative to all those other negative things? Like, how do I walk in that? Discover it. How do I live in it? What does that look like? Number one is this. If you write notes, I'll give you a few things that we can do. Number one is this. Living the vision of Jesus requires partnering with the purpose of Jesus. Living the vision that he has for you, it requires partnering. I'll tell you why I use that word partner in a minute, but it requires partnering with the purpose of Jesus. And this is why I know it's so, people say all the time, God has a purpose for your life. He does. We just don't always know what it is. And when you ask me, like, well, what's his purpose? Well, Jesus summarized it in John 10:10 when he said, I've come that you may have life and life to the full. And what does he mean by full life? He means the abundant life, thriving life. We talked about this a few weeks ago. Zoe, Greek word for life there, is flourishing, is thriving, it's abundant. That's why Jesus came. Listen, you gotta understand this. Jesus did not come so that you can live a life of mediocrity. Jesus did not come so that you can just live a life of surviving. Because I think so often, we just did Mike and I just did a podcast on the VP podcast on this. We talked about this idea of when we go through life, some of us are like, God, can you just like take away the hard things? So we just want you to remove everything, make it easy. Like that would be great. Or sometimes we're like, God, just help me survive this. And I get, we have survival prayers all the time. That's okay. But you need to know like the vision that Jesus has for your life, the vision that he wants for you is a thriving, flourishing life, not just I got by kind of life. And that is, listen, I'm not saying circumstances. Because y'all, if you misunderstand that, then you miss the whole point. What I'm trying to tell you is the life of vibrancy he wants for you, it actually could happen in the midst, and most oftentimes comes in those times when life is hard. And so regardless of the good seasons or the hard seasons, the point of it is his life for you is not held hostage to the circumstances. The life he has for you is transcendent. It's in the midst of those things that you're going through or that he has for you. That's the thriving, flourishing life. And so this is why we have to understand, like, okay, well, what does that mean and how do I get there and what does that actually look like? Jesus later on would say, go and make disciples. And we say, what's the purpose of the church? Make disciples. What's the purpose of the church? Make disciples. What's the purpose of the church? Make disciples. But the problem is when we say that, we don't quite understand what we mean by making disciples. We've been saying this for the last 2 years, that we're in year three, this whole year, on discipleship. What does it mean to be a disciple? And what if I told you that you'll never want to be a disciple if you don't even know where the end game is? It's like, what does it mean to be a disciple? And so often when we talk about being a disciple, we make it about just the right behavior of a disciple of Jesus. Like if I just kind of do the right things of Jesus. And we don't use the word disciple in our context a lot, and so this is where it sort of gets missed. Because maybe it's the word apprentice, maybe, but all the analogies we have today actually don't really capture, I think, fully what Jesus had in store. See, when Jesus showed up, there was a word disciple, and this is what it would look like. You would find someone like a rabbi or someone that was esteemed that you looked up to. And your whole goal was, man, they're gonna invite me, I hope, because if they don't, then I'm like rejected. And so the whole point of it was this great honor that someone would invite you as a mentor to a mentee. You would follow them and then you would pattern every part of your life just like them. I mean, you literally would act like them, talk like them, eat like them. There's even rabbinic teachings that said you use the restroom like them. I mean, the same habits. I'm just telling you, like the whole point of it was you want to be them. And so the whole time I have to try hard. If I can just follow them, do like them, be like them. Jesus showed up and he said, hey, this whole point of discipleship is, yes, I want you to experience my life, but it's different. It's not you just following me and just doing the right behavior on the outside. It's that there's actually an internal transformation that happens from the inside. Because listen, I would say it this way. There's a difference between behavior and your very being. Does that make sense? My good friend Brian, I think, is here. We have this conversation all the time. We've been talking about this for a few years. This idea of like, how many know there's a difference between your being, like your identity, your nature, who you are, and your behavior? How many of you know that? Because I can tell you this right now. You can change your behavior, but that doesn't mean you've changed your being. There's a lot of people out there who are really good at changing their behavior. Like 3 steps to this, 3 weeks of this, everybody can do it. You can change your behavior, but changed behavior doesn't always reflect a changed being, like my who I see myself, my very core of my being. But I will tell you this, that if you change and you're transformed in your being, it will manifest in your behavior. But this is what we've done so long, and I want to kind of push against this. We've made discipleship around the right behavior. Is there a place for that? Yes, we just get them in the wrong order. We talk about your being, it's the ontology, it's the ontological self, right? But what we've done is we made discipleship a pathological thing. Just having the right behavior. I just got to show up right. I got to give the right amount of money. I got to read the Bible inside, outside, Greek, Hebrew, this, that, all over by lunch today. And if I just do this and I do this and I do this and I have this external image that I'm like Jesus, and I would look at you and say, I'm not saying those things are wrong, but that's not the goal. The goal is at the very core of my being, I'm experiencing the very life, the Zoe, thriving, flourishing. I'm having this deep encounter of my being. Transformation happens to me, and then out of that, it reflects in how I live my life. Does that make sense? So why is this important? Because if you're in it for just behavior modification, it's not sustainable. Or it just becomes more religious. This is why Jesus said, hey, all you who are weary and tired. Anybody here weary and tired? Yeah. Imagine if you're like, I'm really weary and tired, and Jesus like, great, come to me because I've got way more religious things to put on you. You think you're tired? You haven't seen anything yet. He's like, no. All those who come to me, you're weary, tired. Listen, I have a life that I have for you. And it's gonna be a life that I'm gonna plant on the inside of you. It's gonna be from the inside out, not the outside in. And there's a deep fellowship I wanna have with you at the very core of your being. And it's out of that deep fellowship, that deep encountering of who he is for us, that kind of transformation, the word for transformation is metamorphosis. It's the beauty of a caterpillar to butterfly. And he puts that inside of us through his spirit. He says, I want you to fellowship with my spirit inside. And as we walk together, that's what discipleship is. Yes, there is transformation, but not just because you've transformed your behavior, but you've been transformed at the very core of your being. Let me just read a couple statements to you because I just want to echo this out loud. When our behavior is wrong, we either celebrate it, that's pride. We manage it, that's religion, or we hide it, and that's shame. Let me ask you a question. Where are you at in these 3 categories today? When you know, like, man, I know these things are off in me. Like, I know I've got all this stuff that's broken inside. Listen, we could go through the room right now and everybody can give an account of the areas of our life. Like, I know Jesus, like I know I rage, I know I get angry, I know I have jealousy and envy, I know that I'm prideful, I know that I'm arrogant, I know that I'm fearful, I know that I am stuck in my ways. I mean, like on and on and on, like all of us. And so my question though is, do you celebrate that? Kind of like, well, that's it, it's who I am. I'm on the Enneagram, it's like number 50. We're having fun with this. My point is this, is like, listen, you guys heard me say this, listen, the one personality I want to be most captivated by is the personality of Jesus. Does he use us? Sure, but I think, come on, sometimes we give ourselves a hall pass on our sin because we put a number to it and justify it. Okay. I know I'm going to get an email on that one. Anyways, we don't celebrate that. That's pride. We don't manage that. That's called religion. And this is probably where most of us are. We hide it because it's shame. Do you know the church is not a place of shame? Let me say it this way. Do you know the presence of Jesus is never a place of shame? It is a place of revelation. It's a place of life exchange. It's a place of honesty and vulnerability. It's a place to come and say, Jesus, this is where I'm imperfect and not like you at all, and I know it. And Jesus is like, I know it too. I'm glad you know it now because I renew it. And Now that you know it, and I've always known it, now we're on the same page, now we can do something. And I just wonder if how many of us are here. Let me just read a couple more things to you. Shame is oftentimes, it's not, I have done something wrong. It's living with this idea of I am something wrong. And some of us, like if you focus so much on behavior and discipleship, you'll probably be more not just managing behavior, you're managing shame. But at the very core of our being, when you know that when I come to Jesus, I surrender all. Jesus, I come with nothing. I come like a filthy rag, stained with my imperfections and sin. And I come before you and the gospel of his grace washes over me. And he says, that's where I want you to be, in that place of humility. I'm going to put my spirit in you. I want you to partner and live in fellowship with my spirit. And we're going to do this together. And I'm going to transform those areas of your life. I'm listening out. I'm like, sign me up for that. Now, I know that some of you are hearing that. And you might be kind of going, what does that actually translate as? So I have this chart I'll just show you real quick, but I know for many of you are like, what does this mean when I step into his life that he wants to birth and do inside of me through his spirit? This is important that you get this. This is the purpose he has for your life. What happens is, we'll go to another one. I'm gonna show you. Sorry, Lauren, my bad. We're gonna get to that one in a second. I'm gonna come back to that one. But I'm gonna show you the contrast. The first one is this. We move from victim to victor. We move from victim to victor. When you say yes to Jesus and the discipleship journey is happening inside of you and that transformation in your very core of your being is happening and you're like, wow, Jesus, you're living in me and through me. And I just want to sit with that and I want to partner with that. This is the purpose he has for you. This is what the end game of discipleship, this is what the journey of discipleship is. It's this idea of I'm partnering with the purpose of his life in me. That's why we say it here, listen, you go to our website, we say our cause statement. What is this all about? What is discipleship all about? It's about experiencing and it's about expressing the very essence, the nature, the life of Jesus. That is what this whole thing's all about. That's why we're in it. So how many of you, just by show of hands, how many of you want to experience the life of Christ? How many of you want to love to express that? How many of you want your friend or spouse to have you express the life of Christ? Yes, okay. You know you do. You are wired for this. God has put this in you, that life will always be unsatisfied and unfilling until this happens. At the very core of your being, you are living in that essence of his life and it's lived out through you. And so it moves us from victim to victor. It moves us from a place of I'm restless to resting. You know, when you're living out of the presence of his life inside of us through his spirit, it's like, man, I just want to be at rest now because I'm restless because I'm probably focusing on too many other outcomes or I'm focusing on other circumstances when I want to just be. How many of you heard the story when Jesus was in the boat, crazy storm? You ever heard the story? It's like a crazy storm. And the disciples are freaking out, tripping, like freaking out. And then where's Jesus? They tripping, Jesus resting. Jesus in the boat. Jesus was a place of rest. Guess what? Do you know where that boat is? Here. Here. When the Spirit of God comes in you, when you say yes to Jesus, discipleship is the ongoing partnering with that purpose end game of God. And as we'll talk about in a second, is partnering with the presence of his Spirit. The other thing that it does, it moves us from worthless to worthful. Too many of us, listen, I want to speak over every generation in the room, young to old. Every generation in this room, you are striving to find your worth. You're striving to find your value. You're striving to find your acceptance. And when you say yes to Jesus and you live out of the life that he has for us on the inside, not out, you live from a place of not striving to find your worth, but you realize he makes us worthful. He fills us with his worth. Listen, if I'm so full of his worth, I'm not full of something else. And you could say it, there's a lot of people out there that are full of something. If your worth is a vacuum that you're trying to fill by the applause and the approval of others, it will be a bucket that never gets filled. But when you live out of the reservoir of the Spirit of God who speaks over you of who you are, it is a river of life. And there is this worthfulness, not because I've earned it, not because I've deserved it, because I'm drinking from the well of life inside. And if I'm full of him, I don't need to be full of it. So just let that sit. Take that in context if you quote that to somebody. It moves us from a place of pleasing people to releasing people. I'm releasing you that you have control over me. I'm not seeking to please you. I'm only pleasing him. It moves us from insecurity to security. It moves us from a place of I'm in the absence of his presence to I have full access to his presence. It moves it from a poverty mindset to I'm a place of God always provides. God is good. God has this. He's for me. You know, the Bible tells us that all riches in heaven are already made access to us. See, when we pray, we're not praying for God to provide something. We're actually praying that he would give me the patience until I see what he's going to provide. He's already provided. God is providing. He's not holding out. He's not a stingy God. The other thing is this, it moves from being intimidated to intimidating. Listen, this is huge. This is so big. When we realize who I am, that inner life of Christ inside of me as a disciple, follower of him, I'm experiencing that this is who I am. Listen, do you know that when you carry the presence of God, you are powerful? And what I mean by that is, listen, there's a dark enemy out there. No, there is no question about that. But do you know that wherever you walk, you're carrying the presence of God? Let me just tell you, when you realize greater is he who is in me than he who's in the world, who's the one that should be intimidated now? Too many Christians walking around and it's like, the enemy's behind the corner, the enemy's behind the corner. Listen, he is. We got to be discerning, but listen, we don't get to walk in fear. We get to walk in the confidence that the enemy is the one that's more afraid of you coming alive in Jesus. He does not want you to know who you are. To hold you captive to that place of fear. It moves us from worry to worship, a place of I feel like I'm being prevented. I'm in his presence, proving myself to approved, from fear to freedom. When you read this list, how many of you go, I'm in? Yep. Yeah. This is what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. This is the purpose he has for us. This is the Zoe life that he has for us, that we're invited into. And it's not just on a personal level, but watch this. There's something where Jesus had in store a purpose of a movement that we as a church, that we should be taking this message of hope and we should be spreading it. We should be a movement. How many of you know that? Listen, church, come on, guys. We are destined to be a movement. We are not destined to be hiding in caves. We are called to walk this earth and to be carriers of the kingdom of light. And guess what? Last time I read, the kingdom of light overcomes the kingdom of darkness. And if we just knew who we were and we were living out of who we were, let me just read this to you, okay? Because this gets so good. All right. John 14:12. Jesus said this, very truly, I tell you, whoever, everybody say whoever. Whoever believes, guess what? Who's that? That's us. You believe, you're like, I get to be part of that? Yes. Put your name in there if you want to. Very truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me, Jesus is saying this, will do the works I have been doing. Whoa. Take account. What were the works Jesus did? Healed the sick, raised the dead, set captives free, walked on water. He did a lot of them. How would you agree with that? Jesus says, I tell you that whoever believes in me, you're going to do the works I've done, but even greater, the word there is mega things than these because I'm going to the Father. Now, you've heard me say this. I know it's a broken record, but you got to hear this. The word mega there is the idea of big, huge movement. I've said this so many times. Jesus destined for us to be a mega church. Let that sit because you're all like, whoa. Mega is not the size of our seating, but the size of our sending. It's how we're sent out. That's what Jesus had in store. Whether you're a small group of 5 or a church of 5, listen, do you know you could be a church of 5 or 10,000 and closed to the Spirit of God? You could just be a building that people meet in like they go to a game in an arena. Sometimes the spirit of excitement is more at a football game than it is in the church, right? So it's not the size of how many seats we have. In that capacity, it's the capacity of my heart to say, Holy Spirit, use me. Send me out. Some of you, I feel like there's a sending call in your life right now. You know how I know that? Everybody raise your hand. You're sent out. There you go. That's how I know that. Like there's a sending call in my life. Yeah, there is. On you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you, on every single one of us. If I was to put this momentum picture that Jesus had into a picture, this is what it would look like. And if I drew it on a napkin, And why do we draw it on napkins? Is because we've said this, if you're having coffee with a friend and you're like, what's Jesus' vision and purpose? And you can't put it on a napkin, we've overcomplicated it. So this is what Jesus imagined. So imagine there's a napkin and we got some circles here. I think we have it. There it is. This is what Jesus envisioned for his church, that we would be raised up in Jesus, raised up in that new life that I was talking about, being discipled in his purpose, the life that he has in us and through us. Like that's what we're doing. We're being matured in that. We're growing in that new life. And as we're raised up, we don't just raise up and stay. We're released out into the world. We're released out to be carriers of his kingdom and to release his life. I just want to say this right now. If you're a student here, whatever grade you're in, your first primary assignment is you are released to be a kingdom releaser. That is your job description. You're like, but I'm a freshman. Awesome, be a freshman kingdom releaser. Some of you here and you're like, I lead a workout at a gym and I teach a class. Awesome. Guess what your first job description is? Kingdom releaser. Some of you are like, I'm a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad. Awesome. Guess what your main job description is? Kingdom releaser in your home. Some of you are like, I work in investments. Awesome. That's your job description by the world standards. In the kingdom, you're a releaser of his presence and power wherever you go. That is what we're called to do. So if you have any other job description, tear it up right now. Your boss will freak out, but listen, Jesus matters more, right? You are released. And then as we release, we want to reach as many people as possible. How many of you know that there's a world out there of people who are held captive by the enemy and we are called to not condemn, but rescue? How many know, like, as we do this, there's a world out there waiting for you to release the kingdom and the presence of God in their life. There will be some people who will see Jesus because of you. That is what we do to reach. And as we reach, we see renewal. Oh man, as reach happens, as we are living the life of Christ, it's flowing in us and through us, renewed life happens. Renewed hope for those that are depressed. Renewed purpose for those who are discouraged. Renewed marriages for those that are broken. Renewed relationships that have been fractured. Renewed peace for those who are living in shame. Renewed everything. How many believe that Jesus is in it for the renewal of all things? And he has called us to be partners with him in that. And then as you see that, reproduction happens and it starts all over again. This is the movement of Jesus. This is what I would love to give my life to. And I'm telling you, this is what I signed up for. This is the invitation that Jesus invited us all to. But we'll never achieve any of this. And this is the last statement I'm gonna transition. We have to learn how to partner with the purpose of Jesus, but we'll never live that purpose out unless we learn to partner with the provision of Jesus. You can have vision, but the only way we live out the vision is through his provision. Where do I get that from? And the provision is his spirit. This is where in Acts chapter 1, verse 8, let me read it to you. Acts 1:8, it says it this way. But you will receive power, everybody say power, and the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the ends of the earth. This is why it's so important. He's like, looks at the disciples. He's like, let's go. We got to start a movement here. We're going to go change the world. We're going to invite people's lives to be transformed. This is going to be awesome. And then he looks at them and says, wait. Wait for my spirit. Because if you try to get ahead of my anointing, you try to get ahead of my Holy Spirit, like you're not going to be able to accomplish this purpose. Because what you're going to do is you're going to break it down. You're going to have the best programs. You're going to have the best practices. You're going to have the best principles. You're going to have the best other P words. You're going to have all of that to try to execute the purpose, but you're not leaning into the provision for the vision, so the vision's never going to happen. So it all comes down to like we have to partner with the provision of his spirit, who he puts inside of. The moment you say yes to Jesus, he actually takes his very essence, nature, his spirit, and puts him inside of us that we get to fellowship with. And the word there is partaker. Everybody say partaker. Bible tells us that we are partakers of the divine nature. Whoa, that sounds weird. Do you know the word partaker in Greek is the word koinonia, which is where we get the word deep fellowship and communion. The Holy Spirit inside of us is someone to be in deep fellowship communion with. And when we're living in fellowship, we begin to hear his voice. We begin to see. Do you know that the Bible tells us that everything Jesus said, he said because he heard outside of himself, the Father and the Spirit. Everything Jesus did, he did because the Spirit was working through him. And he did that to set us up for success. Because you imagine this, if Jesus showed up and said, hey guys, here's the game. I need you all to be like me. And I'd be like, great, I'm not God. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. He's like, I got it covered. I'm gonna put my nature inside of you. And when you partner with my spirit, my nature inside of you, then I'm gonna live my life out in you and through you. And you're like, whoa, that is what it means to be in fellowship with his spirit. And it means to be a partaker of that. And this is why I think it gets so really critical for us, because there's a passage, and it's in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 17. Here's what it says, 2 Corinthians 3:17. It says, now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Everybody say freedom. And I love this passage because this passage is taken from the Old Testament where Moses would go up to the mountain of God, and he was encountering the very presence of God. It was like trembling smoke and fire, and it was awesome light show. It was amazing. And the presence of God was so thick and overwhelming. And God had to even at times kind of reserve how much of his presence would actually be accessed because it would actually kill you. It was so incredible. And so Moses is up there and he's having this encounter with the glory presence of God, so much so that it manifested onto him physically. And his light shined up. Like literally. Like how weird would it be if you're like looking at your friend right now? Go ahead and look at him. And literally like, let's just say their head started glowing. You'd be like, weird. Moses goes up, he's so in the glory of God, it's rubbing off on him. And then God says, now go tell the people what I told you, give them the word I spoke to you. And so he did. The problem is this. The problem is that the further he went away from the presence of God's glory, the glory that was on him began to fade. And so what he knew was if it fades, then they're gonna look at me and not really embrace the fact that I was with God. So he would take a veil and he would put it over his face so they wouldn't see the fading of God's glory. And then what he would do is like go back up to the mountain to the presence of God, get a refill, if you will, of the glory of God. His face would shine again, kind of recharge, and then he'd go back out, but he would still put a veil over it because he knew it was temporal and it was fading because it was a glory outside of him. But then watch what happens here. Something changed when Jesus made the promise that he would put his spirit inside of us. Listen to these words. Now, it says this, now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And we all, everybody say we all. We all who with unveiled faces, we contemplate or we reflect or we show the Lord's glory. We are being transformed into his image with ever increasing. Notice it doesn't say ever fading glory. Ever increasing glory. And then watch what happens. It says it's an increasing glory which comes from the Lord who is the Spirit. See, what happens is this is radical. Don't miss this, don't miss this. Instead of us going up to some high mountain someplace and God is on the outside reflecting his glory, when you say yes to Jesus, he puts his presence in us so his glory resides in us and through us, which tells me this, no more veils in the church. There is that. You don't walk in shame. You don't have to walk and conceal that. What we do is we fellowship with the glory inside that he wants to reveal through us. Listen, you got to know this. He is waiting to break his glory through you. But you can't have his glory breaking through you unless we are receiving the glory he has for us. It was just this last week, a woman in our church had a picture. And it was a picture that I think is super appropriate for today. And I really take this to heart. I heard it and I went, she didn't know what I was preaching on. And I was like, that fits us. And she had a picture of a stained glass window. And the picture of the stained glass window looks like this. And you've all seen it. And the purpose of a stained glass window is to what? Receive light and to disperse that light. And I was thinking through this as it was shared, and I was like, Lord, I really think that's a picture that I really believe this next year, God is going to do a greater revealing in his church. I believe that God's going to prepare the church to be positioned to be better at revealing his glory. Because I think I saw this picture and I went, why, if he's destined and purposed us to be the reflection of his glory and the beauty of his glory, then what keeps that back? For some of us, it's the film of just patterns of sin that we have allowed. I think for some of us, it's compartmentalized. You notice there's, on a stained glass window, there's compartments. I wonder if some of us, we aren't experiencing the full glory of God because we're not giving him access to all of who we are. We're like, God, you could just like do your glory through that piece. Verses like, can I be a stained glass window and say, have your way. Shine your glory through me. Shine your glory in me. Jesus, I give you access to all. I give you access to my pain. I give you access to my sexuality. I give you access to my identity. I give you access to my relationships. I give you access to things that have been done to me. I give you access to everything. I want to experience your life, and I want your life to reflect through me. And I really see this is the picture of the church being beautified because Jesus cares that much about you, and he cares that much about his church. This is the vision he has for us. So here's what I want to do. We're going to close right now. Will you guys stand? I'm going to invite us to do a couple practical things. I think that for us to practice with his spirit, practice with his purpose, then it means practicing with his people. We need to partner with his people. Sometimes we think I can just go through life and I can just live out this vision in isolation as an individual. But you know that God created us, that we experience and we express his essence, his nature, his life in community. It's not meant to be in isolation, because when we are living in community where I'm known and I don't have the veils, I don't have to hide, I get to have the Spirit of God speak through others into me. We get to call out the good in each other, what God is doing. Let me tell you this. Listen, I have men in my life, and women too, but men's cohorts that I'm a part of. And there are amazing godly women in my life, from elder spouses and staff and friends in this church. It's amazing when you have the right kind of fellowship who get this purpose, that we begin to call out the brilliance of God in each other. You begin to say, hey, I see, like, that's Jesus in you. This hard thing you're going through, I just want to encourage you right now. He's actually removing some of the film that's holding back his glory. I just want you to know I see that in you. That's what it means to be prophetic. It means to speak out what God is doing, helping each other see that. And I think we get so busy. How many of you know that we can be busy and not belong? We've been saying that as a staff, too busy, not belonging. You're gonna hear over the next several weeks a lot of ways, not trying to busy you. We're trying to create on-ramps and we're trying to create places. You've heard us say park, coffee shop, living room. It's just this. It's a funnel. We want everybody here to find a place of community that you can belong. You say, I'm known. Others are walking with you in the discovery and the purpose he has for us. Next few weeks, over 90 days, we're gonna do something called the 90-day challenge. Because not only are we called to partner with the Spirit of God, people of God, but there are practices that God does have for us. There are things we can do that aligns my heart, it postures me right, positions me right. So we're really praying into, God, what are some things that we collectively as a church could step into and challenge you? So it's called the 90-day challenge. In the 90-day challenge, there's 5 things. Prayer. We're gonna challenge us that we spend 90 days praying, seeking God's presence, seeking his glory. That we really would be a praying church for 90 days, at home, as a family, as a church. So prayer, a place that you would join. We're gonna challenge you that you would join. Find somewhere of the things we're offering that you would say, yes, I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna participate. You know, right now we need a lot of discipleship group leaders. And you might like, hey, I'm not a leader. We just see someone who's like, hey, I can facilitate, I can help out. If you are here and he's like, hey, help us. We've had over 700 new people come to Grace last year. And we've said this, we're not interested in managing crowds, but we do want to disciple people. And everybody here is called to be known. We need somebody to help us create a space for that. If you're interested in that, then here's what I want you to do. Everybody grab your phones right now. Grab your phones. Everybody grab your phones. Grab your phones. I want you to take this QR code. Take the QR code. And on here is all 5 things. So we want you praying. We want you joining. We're going to challenge you to find a place to serve and help out. We're going to challenge you to give, because you're giving access to every arena of your life. Watch how God's gonna reveal his faithfulness and glory when you decide to say, God, I'm gonna give first to you. watch out. I guarantee you, he will reveal his faithfulness when you say, God, I want to step into this. And the last one is reach. God, who do you want me to reach? Who's out there in the world that doesn't know you yet? God, help me be more in tune to how I can love them, serve them, share you with them. So over the next 90 days, we're going to be talking about these 5 things over and over again. But we want you to be praying into this. My challenge is that you wouldn't look at just one, but you would say, I'm going to participate at some level in all 5. And when you go to that QR code, you go to the link, and you say, I'm interested in these, then we'll send you an email with some options and opportunities how to step into that. But here's the way we're going to end. I know I'm just a little bit over time, but I want us to worship. Here's the thing. We have to have the right posture, don't we? When Jesus looked at the disciples and said, you can't do this without my Spirit. So as we're just here today, would you close your eyes again? I'm going to pray, then we're going to sing. Jesus has an incredible vision for your life and for us together. I think there's some of you here today that have never said yes to Jesus. You've been chasing purpose and vision. You're restless. I just want to encourage you, if you're here and you've never said yes to Jesus, it's a simple posture of the heart. It's an act of faith. It's not about cleaning yourself up, but you just say, Jesus, I say yes to you. I say yes to you. I just want to pray for you. If you're here right now and you've never said yes to Jesus, just in the quietest of your heart, say, Jesus, I say yes to you. I want your life that you offer. And just in the quietest heart, just tell him that. Just tell him that. Just pray it out. Jesus, I need you today. I need your life. I turn to you. I say yes to you. This is the good news of the gospel. Transform me. I want your life from the inside out. Just tell him that right now. And I'd encourage you, if you said that today, share that with someone you came with. Share that with someone wearing a name badge, because we want to just celebrate with you. And then here's what I'm going to ask all of us to do. Put your palms wide open. It's a posture of surrender. Holy Spirit, come. Holy Spirit, we offer ourselves to you. We give this vision to you. We give ourselves to you. There's no way that we can accomplish the vision without your provision. So we welcome you right now. Have your way with us. As we sing, I pray this will be the posture of our hearts. And church, I want to encourage you right now as we sing this closing song, as we just sit here, if you want to kneel, if you want to stand, if you want to come to the front, whatever you need to do, that's a posture of surrender. Just feel freedom to do that as we sing together. But could this be our anthem for our hearts and our cries today? So Holy Spirit, come as we worship.